The day here on Sky News as that police investigation gets underway. Now, returning to another one of our stories, it's been dominating the news coverage for the last 24 hours or so. The footage of that man being dragged off a United Airlines flight. You'll remember this. It was taken by another passenger. Just to remind you, the reason? Well, the airline had intentionally overbooked that Chicago flight, and they are not the only ones. 50,000 British passengers overbooked every year, and all airlines do it. It's not just the big carriers, it's the budget airlines as well. So our Sky debate this morning is, should airlines stop overbooking it? Joining us now is brand and reputation expert Jonathan Gabay and Chief Flight Operations Inspector for the UK, Captain Mike Vivian. Jonathan, I'll come to you first.
Yeah.
Why do airlines overbook flights? We're being told it's standard practice. Why do they do it?
Well, you just said it. It's standard practice. It's nothing that's new. This has been going on for a long time. Even EasyJet, okay, a budget airline, they say that about 5% of every flight is overbooked. It's just standard stuff. But what usually happens is that at the departure gate, that's where they would say, if they don't have enough seats, they say, would you like to, wait for another plane and I'll give you a discount, or there's some sort of incentive going on. So I think the big mistake they've made here technically is that they didn't stop them at the gate, and do the usual stuff, which is, would anybody like to volunteer? And they wait.
Too late. Heightened tensions. People are in their seats, all their baggage is on. It's a real hassle to get off the plane after you've settled in.
But it's very unusual, isn't it? I mean,
I've
had to say the same thing. I've never ever, and I travel quite a lot, I've never ever seen a situation that they would say inside the aircraft, somebody volunteer now. This is an absolute mistake.
Well, let's go to Captain Mike Vivian. I mean, have you seen this happen before? I mean, we've seen it happen at check-in desks and at boarding gates before, but to get on a flight and then being told you have to leave, is this unusual?
Hello, Sarah Jane. No, it's unusual in this instance, but I have had, when I've been operating an aircraft as a captain, I have had people I've had to ask to get off because they're misbehaving badly, what we call disruptive passengers. So in that sense, not unusual, particularly, dare I say it, some youngsters going on holiday who get high-spirited. But insofar as somebody who's got a seat booked, reserved, sitting there quietly, asked to leave, no, it should have been done at the gate, as I agree, or indeed earlier on at the check-in. That's where these things become apparent.
Well, Captain Mike, we are told that the captain of the aircraft, his word is law. If you are told to leave that plane, that has to happen. But do passengers know their rights in terms of if they are asked to leave the aircraft? We are being told that this man was offered compensation, but it wasn't enough. But apparently a written letter or some written rules are meant to be handed over as well. What are the rules that need to be abided by?
Right. Well, insofar as the European rules are concerned, which govern us here, although they're pretty standard worldwide, what happens is the moment the captain gets on board, he has authority and responsibility for the safety and security of the aircraft, of the passengers and the crew. And when it starts, when they're shut up and ready to go, then he takes over the aircraft as well. And if he or somebody representing the commander asks somebody to leave for whatever reason, usually some safety, and in this case possibly was a safety issue because the passenger was becoming what we might term disruptive for whatever reason, and I'm not blaming the passenger, then he should leave the aircraft. The captain's got the authority to ask him to go. On the second issue, most airlines, not all incidentally, JetBlue in America don't have of an overbooking policy, but they do, interestingly enough, offload passengers now and again, and that's because, for example, an aircraft change. I've just been on a smaller Airbus, an A319, and I should have been on an A321. So a certain number of passengers wouldn't have been allowed to fly, and they would have been offloaded. So it isn't just overbooking. But
there
insofar
are a
as...
number of issues there, but we're running out of time, so I just want to bring Jonathan back in, if I may, Captain Mike.
This has been a PR disaster from the outset. You would have thought when an incident like this happens, you'd have the PR team ready on standby to put the fire out, but they simply didn't do it. They didn't draw that line, and they let the chief executive go on to apologise for the events that it took place, that it basically put people, out of sorts.
Yes.
But they didn't actually apologise for the way that this passenger was treated.
I am so fed up with having to come in and talk to news organisations about brands that keep on getting it wrong. I'm not fed up with the news organisations, I'm fed up with the brands. I'm fed up with the fact that they always have to go into this mea culpa stuff, and it's always going to be around 21 hours after whichever incident. Time, that PR people who are being paid a lot of money get their act right, it's time that a CEO, a CEO is going to be someone who's going to be reasonably intelligent in terms of communication skills, and will understand that you're not going to just fob people off, especially in a world where, you have smartphones all over the place, you've got trial by Twitter going on, you must be able to control your own brand narrative. And there's too many companies out there which are not controlling their brand narratives because they're not planning ahead. They're thinking, oh, you know what? The story will go away. It doesn't happen. That might have happened 20 years ago when I started in this business, but not now. OK,
Jonathan Gabay and Captain Mike Vivian are really interesting to get your thoughts on that United Airlines story that is rumbling on. I'm sure we've got another twist in it yet. Thank you very much indeed. And now, still to come here on Sunrise, what has changed in the last 10 years?